Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. So we've had 6 weeks of debates on a variety of topics where the SNP, as the largest party in this chamber, have set out their vision for Scotland for the next 5 years. The purpose of this debate today is to state clearly that Reform Scotland does not share this SNP vision of mediocrity. To make clear that Reform Scotland is far more ambitious for Scotland than set out by the SNP in these last 6 weeks. Now, the first debate in this new Parliament was a very half-hearted attempt by the SNP to put independence back on the table, even though the Constitution is a reserved matter to Westminster, and despite the fact there is no appetite for separation in Scotland. Mainly because the SNP still cannot answer basic questions on currency, pensions, borders and defence, and how on earth Scotland would ever join the EU with a structural annual deficit of 30 billion versus a Maastricht maximum requirement of 10 billion. If the SNP were actually serious about independence, they would have spent the last 12 years, since India Rev 14, preparing Scotland for separation. So this debate was purely performative. Reform Scotland is firmly of the view that unless and until the SNP are able to answer the big questions of separation, this should be put firmly on the back burner, and all the focus should be on making Scotland the most prosperous part of the UK. Then we heard a number of statements on the economy, where the SNP got into competition with the Greens about how many public services can be given away for free, as if that is the correct basis to judge any strong economy. Deputy Presiding Officer, Scots are too canny to be fooled by that. Nothing is for free. If it's not paid for by you, it's paid for by somebody else. With 1% of Scots already paying 30% of income tax and 10% paying 50%, it's pretty clear we need more high earners to pay for all these freebies. So why on earth impose wealth taxes which drive away the highest earners? It's bonkers. Meanwhile, Institute of Chartered Accountants of Scotland have confirmed that Scottish taxes are too high. The 6 bands act as a barrier to productivity. The Scottish Fiscal Commission has warned of a £5 billion black hole because welfare spending is out of control. And the new Cabinet Secretary for Public Service Reform states his plans do not envisage any cuts. Reform Scotland rejects this la-la land. Instead, our vision of a prosperous Scotland is one where our citizens are incentivised to work by allowing them to keep more of their own money through lower taxes, where welfare will always be available to those in need, but that we put maximum effort into helping 500,000 Scots back into the workplace to allow them dignity and pride and the means to look after their families, and where we reduce state spending by cutting duplication and waste. After excessive taxation, we know the second reason causing low growth in our economy is that we have the most expensive energy in the developed world. But in yesterday's debate on energy, this place literally was an echo chamber, with all parties regurgitating the same old trips on climate, crisis and emergency, while the IPPC itself has quietly dropped these two emotive words from its lexicon because of the science. Reform Scotland is clear that ideological net zero policies are causing disproportionate harm to the UK, given that we account for less than 1% of global emissions, and that the fastest way to get our energy prices down is to pump our own North Sea gas onshore for domestic use only. Now, there will be a complementary role for renewables, but only if they're commercially viable, instead of relying on 50 years of subsidies, which is the biggest transfer of money from poor people to rich people since Robin Hood. And if we truly want a growing economy to provide prosperity for everyone, which is the only sustainable way to combat rising costs of living, then we need to get back to properly educating our young people. The SNP has presided over the collapse of our once gold standard education from outstanding to average in the last 20 years, but they do not call a debate on that subject. How cowardly. Reform Scotland would make education an urgent priority to ensure our young people can get real jobs in the real economy. Technical jobs, which will not be taken away by AI, where skills and training are provided through tertiary colleges and apprenticeships, and where universities focus on degree courses which lead to high-value employment. And finally, as well as wealthy Scotland, we want a healthy one. A society where our local communities feel valued and prioritised, who will always welcome newcomers, so long as they contribute economically, respect our values, and don't jump the queue for public services. Where a kinder Scotland is not defined by allowing men into women's spaces, and where our children are allowed to grow up as normal girls and boys. These are the topics and policies which Reform Scotland's newly elected 17 MSPs have debated in the first 6 weeks of this new Parliament, without fear or favour, but with knowledge, common sense and passion. Our group has real-life experience, as well as significant technical expertise in all areas of policy, and we will be a strong voice for the silent majority. You know, this chamber should be very chastened by the fact that 2 million Scots chose not to vote on May the 7th. A record low turnout, proving this chamber has lost its relevance with the Scottish people. So when we come back in September, can we please have no more groupthink? Why? Because General Patton once said that when everyone is thinking the same thing, no one is thinking. Reform Scotland is so ambitious for Scotland. The status quo won't cut it. Our 17 MSPs will do the thinking, even if you don't, and that is why Scotland needs reform. I move the motion in my name.